Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody.
So today we'll be talking about religion, common sense and science.
But before we continue, I would like to introduce ourselves. My name is Uzair Zulfahmi Hafizuddin, and this is AHLI.
What is science? Science literally means to know. Science can be supported by three statements. First, knowledge gained through experience. Okay, let us assume that I didn't know how cat sounds. Then after some times, I went to cat shelter and I looked at the video of the cat. Then I know how cat is sound. Next, accumulated body of knowledge of the physical or material world through observation or experimentation. This kind of definition of science is in our head because we are exposed to it since primary school, where we need to do the experimentation, where we need to do procedure, analyze and record the result. That is the observation and experimentation that we need to do. Third, fact or principle gained by systematic study. The example that I can show you is gravitational law, where the scientists make the systematic study to know the facts and how it works. What is common sense? Common sense is the ability to use good judgment in making decisions and to live in a reasonable and safe way. For an example, it is common sense that you did not steal your friend's boyfriend or girlfriend, so that your life will be more reasonable and more safe in that way, I think. Yeah.
Let's continue to the difference between common sense and science. In general, plainly stated, common sense is information gathered from everyday knowledge, and science is true research on a particular subject with concrete facts. Firstly, we look at in terms of theory. Theories construct the enterprise of science. A theory is an abstraction that applies to variety of circumstances, explaining relationship and phenomena based upon objective evidence. For example, evolution is a theory that applies to a wide range of phenomena and explains the observation of such phenomena, all of which is based upon evidence. Gravity too is a theory, explaining the phenomena that we observe in interactions of body with mass. But common sense has no structure to it. It implicitly subjective and is subject to all manner of cognitive bias. There is no need for testing, replication, or verification when you are reasoning for yourself. No checks for you to pass or fail, no peer reviewing. It is no wonder why science is so much better at explaining things. Next, we move to the testing or verification. Unlike common sense or intuition, science systematically and empirically tests theories and the hypotheses. This is important when viewed in the light that psychological research shows us that the default mode of human information processing include the confirmation bias, which is a form of selective testing and unworthy of scientific thinking. If unchecked, most people intuitively notice or select ideas, beliefs, or facts that fit within what they already assume the world to be like and dismiss the rest. Third, we look at the controls. Science control for possibly extraneous sources of influences. The lay public does not control for such possibilities, and therefore the chains of causation and explanation become tangled. When trying to explain a phenomenon, Science rigorously excludes factors that may affect an outcome so that it can be sure where the real relationships are. Common sense has no such control. The person who believes that a full moon increases the rate of crime does not control this hypothesis. Without control, they may never see that statistics speak to the contrary. Assuming a connection is never as meaningful as proving one. Next, we move to the correlation and causation. Science systematically and conscientiously pursues real relationship backed by the theory and the evidence. But common sense does not. Common sense leads us to believe that giving children sugar causes them to be more hyper. Science shows us that this is not the case. We see possible correlation everywhere, but that does not mean much if we can't prove it. It seems right is not enough. The last one we look at in the metaphysics. Science rule out untestable. Metaphysical explanation where common sense does not. That which cannot be observed, at least tangentially or tested, is of no concern to science. This is why religious-based explanation of scientific concept, for example creationism, is not a science and has no business in the science classroom. So, are you okay, guys? I hope you guys can understand the difference between common sense and science.
Science have three main branches. First, formal science, the study of logic, mathematics, which use a priori as opposed to empirical and methodology. Second, natural science, the study of natural phenomena, including cosmological, geological, physical, chemical, and biological factors of the universe. Natural science can be divided into two main branches, physical science and life science, or more known as biological science. Third, social science, which means the study of human behavior and societies. What is religion? Religion is an organized collection of beliefs, cultural systems, and worldviews that relate humanity to an order of existence. Or in other simple words that I can state here is the belief in and worship of a superhuman controlling power, especially a personal god or gods. Before we continue, let me state for you the meaning of theistic. Theistic is an adjective which relating to or characterized by belief in the existence of a god or gods. In this world, there are two categories that are famous in this world, which is first, atheism, which disbelief in theistic God, or disbelief the existence of any divine being whatever. Next, theism, the belief in the existence of theistic God. There is several types of theism. First, animism, belief that inanimate objects have souls. Second, polytheism, belief in multiplicity of gods. Third, henotheism, polytheistic belief that each nation or country has its own god. Fourth, dualism, polytheistic belief in two conflicting deities, one good and other evil. Fifth, monotheism, belief in one god but not necessarily the theistic god. Sixth, deism, monotheistic belief in a god who set the universe in motion and thereafter left it alone. 7. Pantheism, monotheistic belief that God is identical with nature as a whole. What is the difference between science and religion? Science tends to concern itself with the natural or physical world, that which can be observed and measured. If it cannot be observed or measured empirically, then it is not scientific. In contrast, religion tends to concern itself with the spiritual world, many aspects of which cannot necessarily be observed and measured in a scientific extent. For example, knowledge in many religions comes ultimately from God, and belief in the existence of God cannot be verified empirically. Belief in God is a matter of faith. Okay, next, Uzair will be present about science and religion in Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism.
Thank you, Zulfahmi. So let's proceed with science and religion in Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism. Since Western science makes universal claims, it is easy to assume that its encounter with other religious traditions, which is similar to the interactions observed in Christianity. However, given different old books, especially in Hindu traditions, God is usually not entirely distinct from creation, unlike in Christianity and Judaism. And because science has had distinct historical trajectories in other cultures, one can expect these analogies in the relationship between science and religion in different religious traditions. Science and religion in Christianity. Christianity is an Abrahamic monotheistic religion and currently the largest religion in the world. It developed in the 1st century Anno Domini, or also known as AD, out of Judaism from a group of followers of Jesus. Christians adhere to asserted revelation described in a series of canonical texts which include the Old Testament, which include texts inherited from Judaism, and the New Testament, which contains the Gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, as well as events and teachings of the early Christian churches, and Revelation, a prophetic book on the end times. Several historians have argued that Christianity was instrumental to the development of Western science. Peter Harrison, 2009, thinks that the doctrine of original sin played a crucial role in this, arguing there was a widespread belief in the early modern period that Adam, prior to the fall, had superior senses, intellect, and understandings. As a result of the fall, human senses become duller, our ability to make correct inferences was diminished, and nature itself became less intelligible. Post-lapsarian human, which is human after the fall, are no longer able to exclusively rely on their reasoning to understand nature. They must supplement their reasoning and senses with observation through specialized instruments such as microscopes. As Robert Hooke wrote in the introduction to his book, "Every man that was the breeding of Adam is very subject to slip into all sorts of errors, which is making mistakes." Science and religion in Islam. Islam is a monotheistic religion that emerged in the 7th century following a series of purported revelations to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. The term Islam also denotes geopolitical structures such as caliphates and empires, which were founded by Muslim rulers from the 7th century onward. The contemporary lack of scientific prominence is remarkable, given that the Islamic world far exceeded European cultures in the range and the quality of its scientific knowledge between approximately the 9th and the 15th century. Excelling in domains such as mathematics, astronomy, optics, and medicine. These domains of knowledge are commonly referred to as Arabic science to distinguish them from the pursuit of science that arose in the West. Many prominent Arabic scientists were polymath, such as Al-Farabi, a political philosopher from Damascus, or also known as Damshik, who also investigated music theory, science, and mathematics. Some liberal Muslim authors argue that the rise of conservative forms of Islamic philosophical theology stifled more scientifically minded natural philosophers. In the 9th to the 12th century, the Mu'tazilah, a philosophical theological school, helped the growth of Arabic science thanks to their embrace of Greek natural philosophy. However, eventually, the Mu'tazilah and their intellectual descendants lost their influence to more conservative brands of theology. Al-Ghazali's influential 11th century work, The Incoherence of Philosophers, was a sophisticated critique of the Mu'tazilah, which argued that their metaphysical assumption could not be demonstrated. This book vindicated more orthodox Muslim religious views. As Muslim intellectual life became more orthodox, it became less open to non-Muslim philosophical ideas, which led to the decline of Arabic science. Since the Quran explicitly mentioned the special creation of Adam out of clay, most Muslims refuse to accept that humans evolved out of hominin ancestors. Science and religion in Hinduism. Ancient verdict rituals encourage knowledge of diverse sciences, including astronomy, linguistics, and mathematics. Astronomical knowledge was required to determine the timing of rituals and the construction of sacrificial altars. Linguistics developed out of a need to formalize grammatical rules for classical Sanskrit, which was used in ritual. Large public offerings also required the construction of elaborate altars, which posed geometrical problems and thus lead to advances in geometry. Around 6th until 5th century BCE, or also before Christ's era, the northern part of the Indian subcontinent experienced an extensive urbanization. In this context, medicine became standardized. This period also gave rise to a wide range of philosophical schools, including Buddhism, Jainism, and Carvaka. The latter defended a form of metaphysical naturalism, denying the existence of gods or karma. The relationship between science and religion on the Indian subcontinent is complex, in part because the dharmic religions and philosophical schools are so diverse. For example, Carvaka proponents had a strong suspicion of inferential beliefs and rejected verdict revelation and supernaturalism in general, instead favoring direct observation as a source of knowledge. Such views were close to philosophical naturalism in modern science. The assimilation of Western culture prompted various revivalist movements that sought to reaffirm the cultural value of Hinduism. They put forward the idea of verdict science, where all scientific findings are already figured in the Veda and other ancient texts. This idea is still popular within contemporary Hinduism and is quite similar to ideas held by contemporary Muslims, who refer to the Quran as a harbinger of scientific theories. However, Hinduism and science are in harmony generally. Hinduism is a scientific spirit, as is evident from its long history of scientific discovery. Sri Aurobindo Ghosh, an Indian nationalist who was educated in the West, formulated a synthesis of evolutionary thoughts and Hinduism. He interpreted the classic doctrine according to which God incarnates into the world repeatedly throughout time. In evolutionary terms, God thus appears first as an animal, later as a dwarf, then as a violent man, also known as Rama, and then as a Buddha and as Krishna. He proposed a metaphysical picture where both spiritual evolution and physical evolution are ultimately a manifestation of God, which is Brahman.
Okay, let's continue. Next, Hafizuddin will be explain about relationship between science and religion.
Hello guys. So we proceed to relationship or connection between science and religions. What is the relationship between philosophy, science and religion? The difference is that religion focuses on faith, worship, revelation, and philosophy focuses on the intellectual comprehension. Thus, the philosophy provides an additional opportunity to comprehend the meaning and the interpretation of wisdom that is present in religion. In the relationship also, we have some similarities between science and religion. Science and religion both try to answer the same question, which is science come up with a bunch of answers and eliminates incorrect answer by revealing contrary evidence. For an example, religion come up with one answer and dismisses contrary evidence by saying God did it or God worked in mysterious way. We can make the relationship between science and religion in a few ways. Firstly, science and religion are contrasts between each other. To prove that science and religion are contrasts, we can look at to the hostility theory. The idea that science and religions are at war with one another. For an example, Darwin theory. Darwin's idea that humans were descended by apes. Some people on both sides try to paint the other side as the enemy. However, in Islam, we believe that human descends from Adam and Eve. So it makes science and religions are contrasts between each other according to Darwin theory and Muslims. The second one is science and religions are compatible. To prove this, we look at the harmony theory. It captures the idea that science and religion is incomplete without each other. Like notes in music, we don't experience the beauty of the whole until we hear them together. To make it sense, we look at the Big Bang theory. The science seeks to understand how creation works, and the religions try to provide an experience of how the Creator works. So, it shows how the science and religions are relatable each other or compatible between each other. The third one is science and religions are unrelated between each other. To prove this, we look at the indifferences theory. This theory is still valid in other religions except Islam. Why I say it like that? We can look at the food consumption in our daily life. In Islam, we can't eat illegal food, even though some scientists make a research about pig have a lot of nutrients. So, in other religions, they can eat anything if they want it. So, between them, science and religions are not related between each other. However, we as a Muslim have our own rules in choosing our foods. It makes us believe science and religions are always related, but not on other religions.
Last but not least, we will hear from Hyrule about faith versus facts.
Hopefully you guys are still with us and ready for the next subtopic, which is the faith and the fact. By time, there are increasing number of people believe that the world is not exist by itself, which means it has a creator that created the world that fine-tuned on all aspects. For example, there is a right ratio of the element needed in the Big Bang to be work. Plus, there is such a perfect allocation of the planet in our solar system, and there are a lot more examples to open our mind. Before that, we may take a look at the saying of some expert people on their exposure to the reality of the universe truth. First, Fred Hoyle, an astronomer, said that my atheism was greatly shaken by this development. He said that for the phenomenon of Big Bang. Second, Paul Davies, a theoretical physicist, said the appearance of design is overwhelming. Third, Dr. John Lennox, the professor of the Oxford University, says that the more we get to know our universe, the more the hypothesis that a creator gains in credibility as the best explanation of why we are here. Guys, scientists were struggling to explore the world since a long time ago. Some of them take a long time to discover the reality, besides having a lot of failure to get the truth. Even today, still a lot of mystery of the world are not yet revealed. Scientists start to open their mind that there surely one true power that manages all of these creatures. New theory after the old one. After being experimenting the world in certain field, there are surely assumptions or theories that come from the scientist's belief, knowledge, and experiment. Some theory may no longer valid, as there is a new, better theory that comes closer to the fact. Why so? This is because we got no idea how close the theory to the real fact. That's why sometimes theories are evolving as someone found more information or a better view on the field. For a clearer view, let's look on the theory of the atom. There are a few scientists with their founding in order to come closer to the way to a better theory of the atom. This also happened on the other fields such as embryology. This happened because of lack of facilities, technology, and other things needed to do observation and testing on the experiment. Religion have the hint. Every machine that we use today have the manual. It contains a lot of information about the machine, included what to do and what we should not do with the machine. This is because the creator of the machine want to deliver the information of the machine to us by the manual. It is sometimes given in much detail in order to make us understand well the machine. The same goes to the universe. The creator given the guide by the scripture that sent to us. In this discussion, we focus on Islam as it is our practice of religion. Dr. Zakir Naik, a Muslim doctor, often said that Quran, which is Muslim scripture, is the book of science and not the book of science. This is because there are a lot of science facts that have been stated in the Quran, even sometimes it is not in detail. For example, the development of embryology. In the 7th century, like most branches of medicine, embryology was in its infancy. The most advanced embryological knowledge of the day belonged to the Greek Dr. Galen, who helped incorrect notion about the origin of semen and the development of the embryo. The Quran explanation is more accurate and verified by our modern observations. Arabic use in some verses in Quran accurately depict the detail and sequence of how we develop in the womb. The Quran describes how the human is produced from a mixture of elements, how the early embryo clings onto the uterine wall, how it then develops into the differently formed lump, before developing bony structure clothed with flesh, and finally, it describes the birth of the soul within the physical framework of the body.